Hi, and welcome to Before It Gets Ugly, the channel where we talk about how to get out of bad relationships, bad marriages before it gets ugly. And oftentimes high conflict marriages and relationships can get ugly. Look, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. And oftentimes what you don't want to hear is what you actually need to know. I'm very direct. I've been a longtime strategist, divorce coach, and private investigator for a very long time. So I've seen some really rough cases. And I also know the ways for you to get out to the other side in a safe way without losing your financial shirt and losing your mind. So people always ask me the question, how should I get out? When do I get out? What are the signs? How do I know? Well, we'll talk about those things in other videos, but in this short video, I'm going to share with you the 3 reasons why most people stay. Now, these are the 3 main reasons. There's others, but these are the ones that I hear pretty consistently. So the first one is, my husband's really rotten most of the time, but he does have a good side. I know he really loves me deep inside. Okay, so if you're in a relationship for 20, 30 years and they were nice some of the time, and most of the time they're pretty awful, what do we say about that? My answer is usually the devil that we know feels a lot safer than the devil that we don't. And the reason that is because you know what's going to set him off. You know when he's in a bad mood. And so you shield yourself from that. Whereas the fear of the unknown is overwhelming. Oh my gosh, how can I live alone? What would I do if X, Y, and Z happens? I'm all by myself. But the truth is, it's a lot better to set up your own plans than to always walk on eggshells. And we know that when somebody's high conflict, when somebody just gives you a terrible time all the time or most of the time, that you do walk on eggshells. You're always navigating how not to get him or her upset. So this is a tricky place because days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and guess what? Years turn into decades. And I can't tell you how many people call me when they're in their 40th year of marriage and they can only recall a few good times and the bad times overshadow the entire marriage. And you deserve better than that. So that is a reason that people stay too long. But again, you don't have to. And there's ways to get out so that you can have that better life on the other side. Oftentimes we don't think that we can have a different life on the other side. But here's what I can tell you. All of my clients write to me within a year, 2, 3, after they get their divorce. And they are always so much happier, unless there's some post-divorce abuse. That's a whole another story. But they have moved on with their lives. Many are in new relationships. Some have gotten advanced degrees or even a college degree if they didn't have one. Many have started businesses. They have great relationships and friendships. Some have started or in new romantic relationships. I get Instagram messages from people who are traveling all the time. They never believed their life could be like that. And the question that they have for themselves is always, why did I wait this long? I've never had anybody reach out to me and say, you know what? I wish I would have stayed in that bad marriage just a little bit longer. It never happens. So that's number 1 reason people stay in marriages too long or relationships too long. They just think that person's going to change. And one day they're going to stop being this awful, miserable spouse. And they're going to suddenly be respectful and nice to you. And that usually doesn't happen that way. All right, now number 2. Reason people stay in marriages or relationships too long, especially with marriages, we see this, and that is the financial dependence. How can I leave? I'm a stay-at-home mom. He makes all the money. Or we have jobs, but her salary is way up here, mine's down here. Well, there are ways to get out of marriages. And the financial reason isn't the only reason. Now, I will be honest with you, that is a line. That is a reason. It's not an objective. But if you're married, you have safeguards in place. And the goal is to keep yourself financially healthy. And if you're financial hostage in your marriage or relationship, that's not a great place to be because at any time they can pull the reins in on your financial situation. And I've seen that happen many times where people reach out to me and the marriage wasn't going well and they maybe brought up the D word at some point, D for divorce, and suddenly They're locked out of bank accounts. Passcodes change. Savings accounts, where are they? What has happened? Then it gets tougher, because then you have to find a lawyer, then you have to find a coach, then you have to find a forensic accountant. You have to find somebody to help you in this financial stranglehold that you're in. If you start to position yourself so that you still have access to all of this, but you're concerned, this is the time to move. It is not about, well, what happens when you know what hits the fan. So even though finances can be somewhat tricky, you can be on the other side, and you can definitely be helped, and you don't have to be in a bad relationship because of the finances. Okay, and the third reason that I see people stay in relationships too long is the fear of being alone in their older age. And I get that. We know we don't get married when we're young and envision a long life together to suddenly be alone. But let's dissect something for a second. All relationships end. They end in divorce or they end in death. And we all know people in their 40s and 50s and maybe even their 30s, 60s, 70s who've lost a spouse, and then they're alone and they've lost them to death. So getting a divorce isn't the only way that you would be alone in your older years. Now, here's the difference between being widowed and getting divorced. Because oftentimes when you're widowed, you lose your best friend in death and you're very sad. But the pair of you have set up safeguards for you once one of you pass. Life insurance, money in the bank, the retirement account gets turned over to you, or the house goes in your name totally. So there are safeguards for you. When you're in a bad relationship and you're staying only because, well, I think he's going to take care of me in my elder years. Start to scan what has happened in your not elder years. Very often I ask people, they'll tell me how your spouse was when you had your baby. You'd be not shocked to hear that I've heard stories of the spouse went to a football game while she was in labor, or went to visit family, got on a plane for a boys' weekend. I mean, you name it, I've heard it. And so if they're like that, when you're younger, you're healthy, you're stronger, you were in your 40s, you broke your leg, and where were they? They weren't to be found. Or they expected you to still take the kids to soccer, so you drove with your foot in a boot. Come on, we all hear those stories, and many of you have lived that stories. I hear the stories of unbelievable strength that people have in not a healthy way. You know, I've had clients tell me about, they had a surgery, their gallbladder removed, and their spouse wouldn't take the kids to school. So, she's really proud of herself. I got up with stitches and all, and I drove the kids to school. Wait, put the reins on that. That's not a good person to you. And when you're older, frail, have an illness, dementia, cancer, or your heart's, Parkinson's. I mean, we could go down the list of things. Do you think they're suddenly going to come up to the plate and be a good guy or a good woman? No. They've already shown you decades of terrible behavior when you're at your most vulnerable. They are not going to suddenly wake up and, boom, be the best caregiver on the planet. Now, I'm sure somebody's out there and say, wait a minute, Susan, you're not right. Let me tell you, I know this couple, he was terrible, and then he came up to the plate and he was fantastic. All right, that's very rare. That is not typically how it happens. So you're better off not being in that relationship, planning for what happens in the event something happens to you, and that you are cared for, instead of relying on somebody who's not reliable. Okay, so those are the 3 reasons. There are more, but if you find yourself in any of these reasons, is it a real reason or is it an excuse? Because if you want to be out of a bad marriage or a bad relationship, you can be out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Just click on the link below. We have a lot of resources for you. And again, watch the next video. There's more coming.